The click of Penelope Baker's heels echoed through the empty lobby as she hurried toward the reception desk, already 15 minutes late for her first evening shift at Artemis Publishing. Rain had soaked through her thin jacket, leaving her blouse damp and her carefully styled hair limp against her shoulders. Perfect first impression. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she gasped, addressing the woman behind the desk who was gathering her belongings. The subway flooded and they shut down the line. The departing receptionist, Marcy, according to her nameplate, looked Penelope up and down with thinly veiled skepticism. "It's fine. Night shifts are usually dead anyway. Just answer phones and log visitors." She handed over a binder. "Emergency numbers, protocols, extension directory. The security guard makes rounds every 2 hours. Don't leave the desk unattended for more than 5 minutes." Penelope nodded, clutching the binder like a lifeline. This job was her last hope after 3 months of unemployment had drained her savings and tested her roommate's patience. The evening receptionist position wasn't ideal. The hours would make pursuing her illustration career difficult, but the pay was decent, and Artemis Publishing was one of the most prestigious houses in the city. "One more thing," Marcy added, slinging her purse over her shoulder. "If Vincent Aldridge comes in, call security immediately." Penelope blinked. "Wait, isn't he the owner?" Marcy laughed. "Yes, which is why he doesn't need to be here at night prowling around. Man's worth millions but can't seem to leave work at a normal hour like everyone else. Just give him his messages and don't engage." Before Penelope could ask for clarification, Marcy was gone, leaving her alone in the cavernous marble lobby with its soaring ceiling and wall of awards. She settled into the chair, arranging her meager belongings in the drawer: a sketchbook, pens, a granola bar, and her phone charger. For the next 3 hours, Penelope answered exactly 2 calls and directed 1 lost delivery person. She used the time to familiarize herself with the phone system and building layout while sketching ideas for a children's book she'd been working on. The quiet was peaceful after months of frantic job hunting. At 9:17 p.m., the front doors swung open, and a tall figure strode in, bringing with him the smell of rain and something woodsy and expensive cologne, she guessed. Despite the late hour, he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with no tie, the top buttons of his crisp white shirt undone. His dark hair was slightly damp, curling at the edges, and there was a day's worth of stubble on his jaw. Penelope's hand instinctively went to her disheveled hair. This had to be Vincent Aldridge. No ordinary employee would carry themselves with such confidence at this hour. She sat up straighter, remembering Marcy's warning. "Good evening," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Can I help you?" He stopped, seeming genuinely surprised to see someone at the desk. "You're new." "Yes, sir. First night. I'm Penelope Baker, the evening receptionist." He approached the desk, and she noticed his eyes an unusual shade of gray-blue like storm clouds. "Vincent Aldridge, I own the place." Despite knowing who he was, Penelope felt her cheeks warm under his direct gaze. "Mr. Aldridge, would you like me to call security to escort you?" A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Security? To escort me where exactly?" "I was told," she faltered, realizing how ridiculous it sounded. "I'm sorry, I misunderstood the protocol." Vincent leaned against the counter, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Let me guess. Marcy told you to call security if I showed up." Penelope nodded, mortified. "It's a running joke. She thinks I work too much." He glanced at her desk, his gaze landing on her open sketchbook. Before she could close it, he tilted his head to examine the drawing: a rabbit in a bow tie sitting on a stack of books. "You're an illustrator," he stated, not a question. "Aspiring," she corrected. "It's just something I do on the side." "May I?" He gestured to the sketchbook. Reluctantly, Penelope handed it over, watching nervously as he flipped through the pages. Each contained character designs for her children's book, a story about animals running a bookstore. "These are excellent," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Have you shown these to our children's division?" "No, she hesitated. "I only started tonight. I don't want to seem presumptuous." Vincent handed the sketchbook back. "You should. We're always looking for fresh talent." He glanced at his watch. "I need to grab some files from my office." I'll be down shortly. As he walked toward the elevator, Penelope called out, "Mr. Aldridge," he turned. "There are some messages for you." He walked back to the desk and she handed him several pink slips. Their fingers brushed, and Penelope felt a jolt of something she hadn't experienced in a long-time attraction, mixed with intimidation and curiosity. "Thank you, Penelope Baker," he said, his voice lower than before. "I look forward to seeing more of your work." As the elevator doors closed behind him, Penelope exhaled slowly. This was not how she'd expected her first night to go. Over the next 2 weeks, Penelope settled into the rhythm of her job. The evening shift was as quiet as Marcy had promised, giving her ample time to work on her illustrations. She learned that Vincent Aldridge frequently worked late, often being the last person to leave the building well after midnight. Each time he passed through the lobby, he would stop to chat with her. Their conversations started with polite small talk, the weather, building maintenance issues, messages from his assistant. But gradually, they evolved into discussions about books, art, and publishing. Penelope found herself looking forward to these brief exchanges, even as she reminded herself of the vast difference in their positions. Vincent, she learned, had inherited Artemis Publishing from his father, but had transformed it from a struggling mid-size press into one of the industry's powerhouses. Despite his wealth and status, he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions and aspirations. On a particularly quiet Wednesday night, Vincent emerged from the elevator carrying a manuscript box. "Still here?" Penelope asked, glancing at the clock. "It was nearly midnight, deadline for our fall list," he explained, setting the box down. "I've been reviewing submissions." "Shouldn't editors be doing that?" he smiled. "Old habit. I started in the slush pile reading unsolicited manuscripts. Sometimes I still find gems the editors miss." He paused, studying her face. "You look tired," Penelope shrugged. "Long day. I had a job interview this morning." Something flashed across Vincent's face: concern, maybe disappointment. "You're leaving Artemis, not the reception job," she clarified quickly. "It was for an illustration position at a greeting card company, just part-time," and she sighed. "They went with someone with more commercial experience." Vincent frowned. "Their loss." He seemed to contemplate something, then asked, "Have you shown your portfolio to anyone here yet?" "No," she admitted. "I've been working up the courage." "Come with me," he said suddenly, picking up the manuscript box. "What, now, but the desk? It's midnight, Penelope. I think the lobby will survive without you for 15 minutes. Curious and a little nervous, she grabbed her sketchbook and followed him to the elevator. They rode in silence to the top floor, where Vincent's corner office overlooked the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panorama of twinkling lights against the night sky. "Wow," Penelope breathed, momentarily forgetting her nervousness. "Best view in the building," Vincent agreed, setting down the box and clearing space on a large conference table. "May I?" He held out his hand for her sketchbook. She handed it over, watching anxiously as he spread her illustrations across the table. His expression was unreadable as he examined each one. "These are even better than I remembered," he finally said. "Your style is distinctive, whimsical, but sophisticated." He looked up at her. "Why haven't you pursued this professionally?" Penelope leaned against the table, suddenly feeling very small in the spacious office. Life got in the way. Art school debt, rent, reality, the usual story. Vincent nodded thoughtfully. "I know our children's division is looking for illustrators for a new series." He gathered her sketches, carefully placing them back in order. "I could put in a word with the creative director." Penelope's heart raced. "You do that? Only if your work merits it," he said seriously. "Which it does. Thank you," she said quietly. "That would mean a lot to me." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Penelope forgot to breathe. Vincent was standing close enough that she could see the faint lines around his eyes, the slight shadow of stubble on his jaw. He smelled like coffee and that same woodsy cologne from their first meeting. The spell was broken by Vincent's phone buzzing. He glanced at it and sighed. "I should get back to work, and you should get back to the lobby." The next morning, Penelope woke to an email from Artemis Publishing's creative director, requesting a meeting to discuss illustration opportunities. She read it 3 times, convinced it was a mistake, before calling her roommate Victoria into her bedroom. "Look at this," she exclaimed, thrusting her phone at Victoria. "The creative director wants to meet with me." Victoria squinted at the screen. "How did this happen?" "Vincent Aldridge," Penelope admitted, still in disbelief. "He showed her my sketches." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "The millionaire owner who keeps hanging around during your shifts, the one you won't shut up about." "I don't talk about him that much," Penelope protested, her cheeks warming. "Sure, honey," Victoria patted her shoulder. "Just be careful. Office romances are complicated enough without adding a massive power imbalance." "It's not a romance, he's just being nice." "Millionaire executives aren't just nice to evening receptionists without reason," Victoria warned. "But hey, if he gets you an illustration gig, I'm not complaining." Penelope attended the meeting that afternoon, bringing her complete portfolio. The creative director, Miranda Chen, was impressed enough to offer Penelope a trial assignment illustrating a children's book about a penguin starting school. "This is a test run," Miranda explained. "If we like your work, there could be more projects." "Vincent speaks highly of your talent, but I need to see it for myself." "Of course," Penelope agreed, trying to contain her excitement. "Thank you for the opportunity." That evening, Penelope could barely contain herself when Vincent emerged from the elevator shortly after 9. "You're smiling," he observed, stopping at the reception desk. "Good news, the best," she gushed. "Miranda offered me a trial illustration job. Thank you so much for the recommendation." Vincent's smile mirrored her own. "I simply pointed her in the right direction. Your talent did the rest." "Still, I owe you. How about dinner?" The question caught her off guard. "Dinner, to celebrate," he clarified quickly. "There's a great Italian place around the corner that stays open late." Penelope hesitated, Victoria's warning echoing in her mind. But the genuine warmth in Vincent's eyes persuaded her. "I'd like that. I'm off at midnight." "Perfect. I'll meet you in the lobby." The restaurant was intimate and elegant, with white tablecloths and soft lighting. Despite the late hour, the owner greeted Vincent by name and led them to a corner table. Penelope felt underdressed in her work clothes, but Vincent seemed not to notice or care. Over pasta and wine, they talked more freely than they had in the lobby. Penelope learned that Vincent had fought for control of the company after his father's death, battling both his stepmother and the board of directors, who thought him too young and inexperienced at 26. "7 years later, they've mostly stopped questioning my decisions," he said with a wry smile. "Is that why you work such long hours? To prove yourself?" Vincent considered this. "Partly, but mostly because I love what I do. Books changed my life when I was a kid. My mother died when I was 8, and I lost myself in stories. Now I get to help create them." Penelope nodded, understanding. "That's how I feel about illustration, creating worlds for children to explore." Their conversation flowed easily until the owner gently informed them they were closing. Vincent insisted on walking Penelope to the subway despite her protests. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they reached the station entrance, "and for everything else." "My pleasure," Vincent replied, his gaze lingering on her face. "Good night, Penelope." As she rode the subway home, Penelope felt both elated and confused. The evening had felt suspiciously like a date, but she reminded herself of the reality. Vincent was her employer, sort of and far out of her league. Over the next few weeks, Penelope threw herself into the Penguin book illustrations while maintaining her evening shifts. Vincent continued to stop by the reception desk nightly, often bringing her coffee or asking about her progress. Twice more, they went to the Italian restaurant after her shift, and once to a 24-hour diner when she mentioned craving pancakes. These late-night outings felt increasingly like dates, though neither acknowledged it directly. They were careful to keep their interactions professional at the publishing house, but Penelope couldn't deny the electricity between them when they were alone. One night, as they walked back from the diner, Vincent's hand brushed against hers. After a moment's hesitation, he intertwined his fingers with hers. Neither spoke, but Penelope's heart pounded as they walked hand in hand through the quiet streets. At the subway entrance, Vincent finally broke the silence. "This is getting complicated, isn't it?" "What is?" Penelope asked, though she knew perfectly well. Us, he said simply. I find myself looking forward to the evenings, not because of work, but because I get to see you. Penelope swallowed hard. I feel the same way. Vincent stepped closer. I should probably maintain a professional distance. Probably, she agreed, not moving away. But I don't want to, he admitted, his voice low. Neither do I. The kiss, when it finally happened, was gentle at first, then deepening with a hunger that surprised them both. Vincent's arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer, and Penelope melted against him, forgetting where they were when they finally separated, both slightly breathless. Vincent rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Me too, she confessed. This complicates things, he said, still holding her close. Penelope nodded. I know, I should probably look for another evening job. Vincent shook his head. No, we'll figure it out, but we should be discreet, at least until we know where this is going. Where do you want it to go? She asked, suddenly vulnerable. His answer was another kiss, briefer but no less intense. Let's find out together. Their relationship evolved cautiously over the following month. At work, they maintained a professional distance, but after hours, they explored their growing connection. They discovered shared interests in obscure films and spicy food, debated literature passionately, and gradually revealed more personal details of their lives. Vincent learned about Penelope's childhood in a small town, her struggle to convince her practical parents that art was a viable career, and her determination to succeed on her own merits. Penelope discovered Vincent's complicated relationship with his father's legacy, his passion for discovering new authors, and his secret dream of writing a novel someday. The illustration project was going well. Miranda had already hinted at extending Penelope's contract for additional books, but Penelope still kept her evening reception job, partly for financial security and partly because it gave her legitimate reasons to see Vincent daily. The dual nature of their relationship created occasional awkwardness. During the day, Penelope would catch glimpses of Vincent in meetings or the elevator, where they would exchange professional nods while suppressing knowing smiles. At night, they would sneak kisses in his office or hold hands under the table at late-night dinners. Their careful balance was disrupted when Artemis Publishing hosted its annual Authors Gala. As an illustrator for an upcoming book, Penelope was invited to attend. Though they had agreed to keep their relationship private, this would be their first time at a company event together. Penelope spent hours preparing, selecting a midnight blue dress that made her feel elegant without being ostentatious. Victoria helped with her makeup and hair, teasing her mercilessly about her millionaire boyfriend the entire time. Just remember, Victoria warned as Penelope prepared to leave, people are going to talk no matter what you do tonight. Office gossip is inevitable. The ballroom of the luxury hotel was transformed into a literary wonderland, with centerpieces inspired by classic novels and cocktails named after famous authors. Penelope arrived alone, as planned, and immediately felt out of place among the established authors, agents, and executives. She was examining a display of upcoming releases when she heard Vincent's voice behind her. The Penguin book looks excellent. The illustrations are particularly charming. Penelope turned to find him looking devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo. Thank you, Mr. Aldridge, she replied formally, aware of others nearby. I'm quite proud of it. Vincent's eyes conveyed what his words couldn't. You look beautiful, he said quietly. You clean up pretty well yourself, she returned, fighting the urge to straighten his bow tie. They maintained a professional distance throughout the evening, though Penelope frequently felt Vincent's gaze following her across the room. She was chatting with Miranda about the next book in the series when she overheard a conversation from a nearby group. Of course she got the illustration contract, a woman's voice said derisively. Have you seen how Aldridge looks at her? Sleeping your way to success is the oldest trick in the book. Penelope froze, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Miranda, who had also heard, looked mortified. Excuse me, Penelope murmured, setting down her glass and walking quickly toward the exit. She needed air, needed to escape the suddenly stifling atmosphere of the ballroom. She found a quiet terrace overlooking the hotel's garden. The night air was cool against her flushed skin as she gripped the stone balustrade, fighting tears of anger and humiliation. "Penelope," Vincent's voice came from behind her. "What happened?" She couldn't look at him. "You should go back inside, people will talk." "They're already talking," he said, moving beside her. "Miranda told me what you overheard. Is that what everyone thinks, that I got the job because we're—" She trailed off, unable to find the right word for what they were. Vincent sighed heavily. "Some people will always think the worst. But Miranda knows talent when she sees it. Your work speaks for itself." "But our relationship complicates everything," Penelope said, finally turning to face him. "Maybe we should take a step back, at least until I establish myself professionally." Vincent's expression tightened. "Is that what you want?" "No," she admitted, "but I need to know I earned my success." "You have," he insisted, reaching for her hand. "But if space is what you need, I understand." Before she could respond, the terrace door opened and several guests spilled out, cocktails in hand. Seeing Vincent and Penelope, they hesitated before retreating back inside, but the moment was broken. "I should go," Penelope said, pulling her hand from his. "Good night, Vincent." For the next week, Penelope avoided Vincent as much as possible, switching shifts with the daytime receptionist to minimize their contact. She threw herself into finishing the penguin illustrations and began sketches for another potential project. But avoidance couldn't solve the fundamental issue. She had fallen in love with Vincent Aldridge, and their professional connections made that complicated. Every sketch she completed, every illustration she refined, came with the nagging doubt: would this have happened without Vincent's influence? On Friday afternoon, Miranda called Penelope into a meeting to review the completed Penguin book illustrations. "These are excellent," Miranda said, examining the final spreads. "The author is thrilled, and marketing thinks this could become a series." "Thank you," Penelope said, relief evident in her voice. "That means a lot." Miranda closed the portfolio and fixed Penelope with a direct look. "I need to address something. There are rumors about you and Vincent." Penelope's stomach clenched. Let me finish," Miranda interrupted. "Whatever is or isn't happening between you two is none of my business. But I want to be absolutely clear. You got this job because of your talent. Vincent showed me your work, yes, but I've been in this business for 20 years. I don't hire artists because the boss has a crush on them." Penelope blinked, surprised by her candor. "Thank you for saying that. That said," Miranda continued, "office relationships are complicated. If you're going to pursue this, you need to be transparent. The sneaking around is causing more talk than the relationship itself would." Penelope nodded, absorbing this advice. "I appreciate your honesty." That evening, she returned to her evening receptionist shift, knowing Vincent would likely stop by. She needed to have an honest conversation with him about their future, both personal and professional. When the elevator doors opened at 9:30, however, it wasn't Vincent who emerged, but his executive assistant, Caroline. "Penelope," Caroline greeted her. "Vincent asked me to give you this." She handed over an envelope. "He's been called to Chicago for an emergency meeting with a major author. He'll be back Monday." "Oh," Penelope said, trying to mask her disappointment. "Thank you." After Caroline left, Penelope opened the envelope to find a handwritten note. "Penelope, I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye. This meeting couldn't be rescheduled. I've been thinking about what you said at the gala. You're right that our situation is complicated, but I don't believe the answer is stepping back. I believe in your talent completely, as does everyone who matters at Artemis. What I feel for you has nothing to do with work, and everything to do with the person you are: talented, kind, determined, and brave. When I return, I hope we can talk about moving forward, not stepping back. Until then, Vincent." Penelope read the note 3 times, emotions warring within her. By the time her shift ended, she had made a decision. On Monday evening, she waited nervously at the reception desk, her resignation letter prepared. If she and Vincent were going to pursue a relationship, she couldn't continue working directly for his company. It wasn't about appearances, it was about her own peace of mind and professional integrity. At 8:45, the elevator doors opened, and Vincent stepped out, looking tired from travel but breaking into a smile when he saw her. "You're still here," he said, approaching the desk. "I wasn't sure you would be." Penelope handed him the envelope containing her resignation. "I needed to give you this." Vincent's face fell as he opened it, his expression darkening as he read. "You're quitting." "The receptionist job, yes," Penelope clarified. "I've spoken with Miranda about continuing as a freelance illustrator. That way I won't be directly employed by Artemis." Vincent looked confused. "Is this because of what people are saying?" "No," Penelope stood, moving from behind the desk to face him properly. "It's because I want to be with you without either of us questioning my professional achievements or your judgment." Vincent's expression softened. "You want to be with me?" "I do," she confirmed. "These past few months getting to know you, not just as Vincent Aldridge the Millionaire publisher, but as Vincent who loves mystery novels and hates cilantro, have been amazing. But I need to know my career stands on its own merits." Vincent set down the resignation letter and took her hands. "I understand, and I support your decision even though I'll miss seeing you here every evening." "I was hoping you might see me elsewhere instead," Penelope suggested with a smile. "Like dinner at normal hours or breakfast occasionally." Vincent laughed, pulling her closer. "I'd like that very much." His expression grew more serious. "I want you to know something. When I first saw you that night sketching at this desk, I was drawn to your talent, yes, but it was your determination, your kindness, your passion that made me fall in love with you." Penelope's breath caught. "Love. Yes, love," Vincent confirmed, his eyes never leaving hers. "I love you, Penelope Baker, evening receptionist, brilliant illustrator, extraordinary woman." "I love you too," she whispered, rising on tiptoes to kiss him, no longer caring who might see. 6 months later, Penelope's first fully illustrated children's book was published by Artemis to critical acclaim. She had moved out of her shared apartment with Victoria and into Vincent's downtown loft, where she had converted a sunny corner into her studio. Their relationship had survived the initial gossip and skepticism, strengthened by their commitment to maintaining her professional independence. As they celebrated the book launch at the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first dinner, Vincent raised his glass. "To new beginnings." Penelope clinked her glass against his. "And to unexpected meetings." Later that evening, walking hand in hand through the park near their home, Vincent stopped beside the pond. "Do you remember telling me about your childhood dream of having a small house with a big garden?" he asked. Penelope nodded, curious about the sudden change in topic. "Yes, why?" Vincent reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I found a place upstate, a cottage with an acre of land, room for a garden, a studio with perfect natural light and space to build a life together." Penelope's eyes widened as he opened the box to reveal a vintage emerald ring surrounded by tiny diamonds. "Penelope Baker," Vincent said, his voice steady despite the nervousness in his eyes. "Will you marry me and build that life with me?" Tears blurred Penelope's vision as she nodded. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, absolutely yes." As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, Penelope marveled at how completely her life had changed since that rainy evening when she'd rushed into the lobby of Artemis Publishing. She had started as an evening receptionist, not knowing the company owner was a millionaire noticing her. She'd ended up finding not just a career she loved, but the love of her life. Their journey hadn't been straightforward, but as Vincent's lips met hers under the starlit sky, Penelope knew it had been perfectly, wonderfully right.